Alright, so let's talk about another thing that's kind of unique to C, which is data types and variables. When I say unique to C, I really only mean in the context of if you have been a programmer for a really long time, you have probably not worked with data types. If you have used modern programming languages, modern languages like PHP and JavaScript, which we will also see a little later on our courses, you don't actually have to specify the data type of a variable when you see it. You just declare it and start using it. If it's an integer, it knows it's an integer. If it's a character, it knows it's a character. If it's a word, it knows it's a string, so called. But in C, which is an older language, we need to specify the data type of every variable that we create the first time that we use that variable. So C comes with some built-in data types, and let's get familiar with some of those. And then afterwards we will also talk a little bit about some of the data types. The first is int. The int data type is used for variables that will store integer values. So 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3, and so on. Integers, which is something you should keep in mind for the quiz, always take up 4 bytes of memory, which is 32 bits. There are 8 bits in a byte. So this means that the range of values that an integer can store is limited by what can fit within the 32 bits worth of information. Now, as it turns out, it was long ago decided that we should split up that range of 32 bits into negative integers and positive integers, each getting half of the range. So the range of values that we represent with an integer range from -2 to the 31's power to 2 to the 31's first power minus 1, cause you also need a spot for 0. So basically half of the possible values you can fit in an int are negative and half are positive. And roughly here this is about -2 billion to about positive 2 billion, give or take a couple hundred million. So that's what you can fit in an integer variable. Now we also have something not a separate type of variable. Rather, unsigned is what's called a qualifier. It modifies the data type of integer slightly. And in this case, what unsigned means, and you can also use unsigned other data types, integer is not the only one. What it effectively does is doubles the positive range of values that an integer can take on at the expense of no longer allowing you take on negative values. So if you have numbers that you know will get higher than 2 billion but less than 4 billion, for example, which is 2 to the 32nd power, you might want to use a unsigned int if you know your value will never be negative. But again, the range of values that you can represent with an unsigned integer as to t regular integer are 0 to the 32nd power minus 1, or approximately 0 to 4 billion. So you have effectively doubled the positive range that you can fit, but you have given up all the negative values. Now, as an aside, unsigned is not the only qualifier that we might see for variable data types. There are also things called short and long and const. Const we will see a little bit later on our C programming language courses. Short and long we probably won't, but just know that there are other qualifiers. Unsigned isn't the only one, but it's the only one we are going to talk about right now. So, alright. So we have covered integers. What's next?